This is a reading from the End Times as revealed to Maria Valtorta. 73. Come to the Lord. The following short extract is taken from near the end of a dictation commenting Psalm 93, Vulgate's numbering. February 26, 1944. Extract, Quaderni 44, page 215. Jesus says, "My people, come to the Lord. I, the Lord, will not turn down the people that comes to me. And if it stays close to me, I will look after it until justice be turned into judgment." Verse 15. In other words, until time comes to an end and eternity begins. 74. Non-faith shall prevent miracles. The following quotation comes from a vision in 3 parts which Maria Valtorta had about the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 11, verses 1 through 46. In 1946, she saw the same gospel events in much greater detail, and it is the longer version which is found in the Poem of the Man God, volume 5, pages 27 to 31, 41 to 44, and 47 to 64. In our extract, Jesus is speaking to his apostles. The context is Lazarus' death and upcoming resurrection, and Jesus is referring both to the time he will be on the road to Golgotha and to the end times. March 23, 1944, extract from Quaderni 44, pages 282 to 283. Jesus says, "The hour shall come when I can no longer move a finger or say a word to work a miracle. The world shall be void of my force. It shall be a dreadful hour of chastisement for mankind, not for me, for mankind, which will not have wanted to love me. That hour shall be repeated by the will of mankind, which shall have rejected the divinity so far as to becoming a godless follower of Satan and of his cursed son. That hour shall come when the end of the world is near. The prevailing non-faith shall nullify my miracle power, not because I could lose it, but because a miracle cannot be granted where there is no faith and no will to obtain it, and where the miracle would be turned into a laughingstock and an instrument of evil by people using the obtained good to bring about a greater evil." 75. The enemy's signs, the flood of satanic cruelties. The following extract comes from a text on Isaiah, chapter 7, verses 10 to 16, dictated by God the Father. March 25th, 1944. Extract, Quaderni 44, pages 288 to 289. God the Father says, "You people do not have a sign from your God, because I do not show myself to those who refuse to acknowledge me. Instead, you have the many signs of the one you worship, like slaves. He, the enemy, multiplies his signs, and you, already near the time when the apocalyptic beast is worshipped, are led astray by them, and you consider that the author of such signs must be greater than I, must be the only one that exists. You ask yourselves, who is God? What is he? And inwardly you reply to justify your wicked deeds, there is no God. I am who I am. I am so much greater than you that no manifestation of mine would by now be understood by the world, sunken into the most awful darkness and stupidity. What you consider progress is your regression towards the twilight of the early times in which people, having lost God and his heaven, were hardly superior to the beasts, and pushed their corruption to a point that induced me to exterminate the race over which I was indignant. The end will be like the beginning. The circle is coming together, grafting the two murky, unfinished works to one another. The new flood, in other words, God's wrath, will come in another form, but it will still be wrath. Faithful to my word, I will not send the flood anymore, but I will let the satanic forces send the flood of satanic cruelties. 76. The world is lost to God, but souls can still be saved. Although Jesus dictated the following on Easter evening, Maria Valtorta commented, "Jesus speaks and speaks to me so painfully, and it is such a sad topic that I am writing it elsewhere." She indeed wrote Jesus' words to her on a 4-page leaflet apart from her regular notebooks. April 9th, 1944. Complete dictation. Quaderni 44, pages 318 to 320. Jesus says, "Last year I told you, Maria, and it was the first dictation. The Father is weary, and to make the human race perish, he will let the chastisements of hell go wild. I also said it was Good Friday. I would come a second time to die, to save them from an even more atrocious death, but my Father will not allow it. He knows it would be useless. Oh, if people could still turn to me who am salvation. I refer you people to all my dictations prior to the recent ones. I spoke using the prophecies of the Holy Book, explaining them to you, applying them to today. And if I fell silent afterwards on this, it is because I understand that it was useless for the purposes of good, and unsafe because those divine words could have become weapons of diabolical torture against my servants who heard them, repeated them, spread them, and welcomed them. But it is my thinking, and even if it is not expressed in words, it does not change. Maria, I told you in late May 1943 regarding the future. What do you want to know, poor soul? Dictation of May 31st, 43. Thank my mercy that for now it hides from you to a great extent the truth about the future. Poor, poor soul. Another time I said, you would like me to come and show myself, but even if I appeared, where in people's hearts is there enough of a glimmer of faith and respect to make them bow with their faces to the ground to beg me for forgiveness and mercy? Dictation of June 5th, 1943. Even now, you people ask me for a sign of power, to be a saint's power, the power of the saint of saints. It would have to be a relentless, terrible punishment of a countless number of people, because I repeat what I have said 1,000 times. There are guilty men because the masses are all more or less guilty of the same sinning as the mighty. I tell you, poor soul, to whom I granted seeing me triumphant, to strengthen your being, worn out in the flesh that is dying, and grieved in spirit by the trial you underwent, and by the horrors around you. I cannot give this sign of my power. It is impossible for me to do so, not because God would have lost his power to do so. Nothing is impossible to me as God, but it is the hour of the power of darkness, and people have wanted it of their own free wills. The kingdom of evil is already set up. Whatever I did would be nullified by people's free wills. Whatever good would be destroyed by evil. Powerless, I witnessed this rush of all mankind into spiritual death. There is no gift of mine, no kindness of mine, no rebuke of mine, no punishment of mine of use to stop mankind, redeemed by me, from voluntarily ruining itself in Satan. Like an enraged bull, mankind runs over everything, reason, morals, faith, and goes and crashes against what is killing it. People's desecrating hands are being raised for a new crime which does not deserve forgiveness, and the Father does not want to forgive. He lets you perish as you wanted. The only thing I can do, and am doing, is to hold back my Father's wrath, and I'm doing it out of compassion for the saints who, rare like flowers in a desert, still pray. Pray and do not make protestations of custom and hypocrisy, weary of the crimes of a brood for which my blood was shed uselessly. The Father really wants to wield his justice on you, and justice, since you are guilty, would mean tremendous punishments, which my mercy does not want to be meted out, in addition to those which you already mete out to yourselves. Maria, I know I'm hurting you and crushing you. You had expected joy from my Easter, roses after the thorns, smiles after the tears. You are a victim. The thorns and tears remain even in the Easter season, because it is necessary to stay on the cross for this wicked mankind. I ask you to stay on the cross for me. To save the world has been my dream. To save souls, my joy. The world is lost to God, but souls can still be saved, those who still have a soul, listless but alive. I beg your charity for them. It is Jesus, a beggar for love in his capacity as glorious risen man, who is asking you for this offering of souls, so that his kingdom may still have subjects. Go in peace. 77. The Trinity, always ready to help us. Later the same day, Resurrection Easter, The grim previous dictation was balanced out by a comforting one. April 9th, 1944. Complete dictation. Quaderni 44, page 320. The Holy Spirit says, I am the Comforter. I comfort those crushed by dismay and tortured by the present. I am the one who heals and sweetens the bitterness of the words that speak the truth, which nowadays is really bitter. Today is the triumph of charity, as Christmas is its loftiest manifestation, for Christmas is the beginning of redemption, which is charity in action, whereas Easter is redemption fulfilled. Easter is life's victory over death through love exalted to a voluntary holocaust to give you life. Easter is the act which made it possible for me to descend into you, re-sanctified by the blood of God the Son, to reunite you with God the Father by means of charity, without which God cannot be in you or you in God. On this triumphal day I come to tell you, Maria, trust some more, even if everything seems lost. Trust, even if the abyss of evil spews out its demons to torment the earth and fertilize it to bear the Antichrist, and even if the abyss of the heavens seem to shut itself by decree of the Father, from whom we proceed. We, the Word and the Spirit, even so, we are still working and loving to save you, people, and defend you, I, charity, and the Word, charity, I, sanctification, and the Word, redemption. We do not cease pouring forth the one who merits of his blood, the one the merits of his blood, the other the caroms of his power for the good of you people. Trust, love has always conquered. I must interject here that the expression you people sounds awfully clangy. That's not what I remember reading the first time I read these passages. I think he said men, the good of men, he used to say. And of course, it's now not politically correct to say men, as though somehow it doesn't include women. But it's too bad that they made that change in the translation. It doesn't fit in well. Anyway, continuing. 78. A reminder on judgment. May 13th, 1944. Extract. Quaderni 44, page 346. Jesus says, If I am the first in heaven and on earth, I who respect the eternal Father's decrees, I am also the one to whom every judgment has been deferred by the Father. 79. Christ's Voices on Earth, August the 5th, 1944. Complete dictation. Quaderni 44, pages 571 to 73. Jesus says, I have prepared you, Maria, to meditate on my glory. Tomorrow the church celebrates it. But I want my little John to see it in its truth, to understand it better. I am not choosing you only to know your master's sorrows and griefs. Those able to remain with me in sorrow must have a share with me in joy. I want you, before your Jesus showing himself to you, to have the same sentiments of humility and repentance as my apostles. Never have pride. You would be punished by losing me. Remember constantly who I am and who you are. Constantly think about your shortcomings and about my perfection, so as to have a heart cleansed by contrition. But together with that, have great trust in me. I have said, do not be afraid. Stand up. Let us go. Let us go among the people, because I came to be with them. Be holy, strong, and faithful in memory of this hour. I say to you too, Maria, and to all my beloved ones amidst mankind, to those who have me in a special manner, do not be afraid of me. I show myself to lift you people up, not to annihilate you. Stand up. Let the joy of the gift give you strength. Let it not dull you in the stupor of quietism by considering yourselves already saved, because I have shown you heaven. Let us go together among the people. I have invited you to superhuman works with superhuman vision and lessons, so that you may be of greater help to me. I associate you in my work. But I did not and do not know rest, because evil never rests, and good must always be active to cancel the enemy's work as much as possible. We will rest when time has ended. Now one must go on tirelessly, work constantly, wear oneself out untiringly for God's harvest. May my incessant contact sanctify you, my incessant teaching strengthen you, my love of predilection make you faithful against every snare. Do not be like the ancient rabbis who taught revelation and yet did not believe it, to the extent that they did not recognize the signs of the times and God's messengers, recognize the forerunners of Christ in his second coming, because the forces of the Antichrist are on the march. Yes, they are. I imposed a limit on myself because I know that you people drink in certain truths not in a supernatural spirit, but out of the thirst for human curiosity. But I will now make an exception. In truth, I tell you all, that what many shall consider a victory over the Antichrist, the peace now at hand, is but a break to give time to Christ's enemy to gain new strength, to heal his wounds, to regroup his armed forces for a crueler fight. Recognize who are the voices of your Jesus, the King of Kings, the faithful and truthful one who judges and fights justly, and will vanquish the beast and its slaves and prophets. Recognize your good and follow it always. Let no deceitful looks seduce you, and no persecution overcome you. Let your voices say my words. Let your lives be devoted to this work. And if you share the destinies on earth of Christ, of his forerunner, and of Elijah, a bloody destiny, or a destiny tortured by moral abuse, smile at your future and secure destiny which you will share with Christ, with his forerunner, with his prophet. We will be similar in work, in sorrow, and in glory. Here I was the master and example. There I am the reward and king. Having me will be your bliss. It will mean forgetting sorrow. It will be what every revelation is still not enough to make you understand, because the joy of the future life is too far above the imaginative abilities of creatures still united to the flesh. God's unknown heroes. The long extract that follows is almost a complete dictation. Okay. The long extract that follows is almost a complete dictation, as we omitted only a few lines at the beginning. Jesus soon goes on to allude to World War II. When he starts denouncing the Pharisaic lifestyle indulged by most people, he mentions by name a Pharisee of his own time, Ishmael, whose harshness is described in the poem of the Man God, volume 3, page 320 to 332. Finally, Jesus speaks about God's unknown heroes who stave off God's punishments by their sacrifices. He ends with a personal prophecy from Maria Valtorta, September 12, 1944. Extract, Quaderni 44, pages 630 to 633. Jesus says, "The world is heading for its peace, which is not mine, because mine is the peace of holiness and justice, and the world's that of bullying and corruption. What has happened and is happening is horrible, isn't it? I refer you people to my first dictations. I always said that this was not a war of nations, but Satan's war against God. One of the wars preparing the coming of the Antichrist, whose forerunners are around now. I always said that Satan was waging war against spirits through the horrors inflicted on bodies, and that many would break down because the spirits of people no longer fed on grace and faith are extremely weak against evil. I said that my angels, through the sacrifice of the good, would fight to prevent a widespread mowing in the human race by the demons. I said in the particular case of the Italians that if they could not use their first grace uprightly, and if, after worshipping as a god one less than an idol, and serving him servilely like brutes, they went on to use the same cruel methods as he did, chastisement would come down. For a grace deserves on people's part an effort towards goodness and not towards wickedness. And you, Italians, have enjoyed yourselves. Cursed, hated, you have become Judases of your petty master and of his closest friends. Yesterday, only yesterday, you were prostrate like slaves, and today here you are with tight fists, cursing, with grasping talons to seize what yesterday you regretted to see in the possession of others. I said that the chastisement would be to experience horror, throughout the country. A horror which, thinking it over among yourselves, you would consider a feverish nightmare. Now you see if it was true. But will you mend your ways? The scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees in my time saw with their own eyes the fruit of their repeated sins. Israel, humiliated, persecuted, dominated, scattered, used to say in a wailing voice, "Here is the chastisement for no longer being real children of God." Yet none of the leaders, at least very, very few leaders, became converted to me. Exhortations and rebukes, gentleness and sternness, indulgence and intransigence, smiles and sadness, readiness to work miracles, or apathy for the requests for miracles, I used everything to shake them and persuade them. All I obtained was their more intense, more complete prostitution with Satan, until they went so far as to ride roughshod over the prophets, refusing to acknowledge me as Christ, as the facts proved by bearing out the prophecies, and they went so far as to kill Christ, the Word of God. Now, the same thing is happening among the powerful and among the powerless, socially or individually. 90% of people live like the Pharisees of back then and act with the same systems: self-seeking, pride, hardness of heart, lust, greed, gluttony, and all the forms of selfishness are the foundations of your lives and the rules of your actions. You are not horrified by Ishmael's harshness. You too do the same to those who have no more use for you. You too do the same to those you have no more use for. Both charity and charity are dead in you. Charity with a big C and charity with a small c. You love only yourselves. But now I say, charity with a big C, whom you do not want, flows onto precisely those you scorn, forsake, and laugh at, after even exploiting them. They are those who live only for charity's sake, and who, loving God more than themselves, love you more than themselves. They love you as God loves, helping you in soul and matter. You do not know anything, understand anything, wonder about anything, but God knows, sees, and understands without asking. He knows why there is some compassion for you from on high, because of these uncharitable people who love me and love you, and who have turned because of these charitable people who love me and love you, and who have turned love into their life purposes, not for you as you are, but to do something agreeable to me. Do you people know how many tears, how many sorrows, how many penances, how many sacrifices are the price of your existence? You think you have life from your mothers who gave you birth, and from your fathers who gave you bread. True, if you measure yourselves by the yardstick of brutes. You have life from your parents, but life, true life, goes on for you to give you time to be converted, thanks to those charitable people. And many of you do not die forever because of these heroes unknown to you. By putting themselves between you and God with raised arms, they stave off the divine punishments and transfuse some spiritual blood into you. Yes, into you, whose veins have been slashed by moral diseases. They transfuse that blood which flows in the great mystical body, and which is the blood of grace. But it is through the sifter of their sacrificed selves that this good filters to you wicked people. This is a severe dictation. I am sorry about it for my little John's sake, but I comfort her with a caress. This one, though all forsook you, Maria, I will be for you. Though all forgot you, I will remember you. Though all hated you, I will love you. See how I help you even bodily and with physical strength when the time is right? You are in my hands, a beloved and precious instrument. Have no fear. Live in and for your mission. Do as a child given that toy which shows wonderful views if you keep your eyes next to the lenses, but which is just a black box if you move your eyes away. Maria, you keep your eyes glued on me and on your mission. The world is around you. It must stay around. It must not be within you. Within is my world. Give the world, the poor, unknowing, and blind world, the lessons and lights which come to you from my world. If you could only see how much of heaven is around your work. Ah, how happy you will be when you realize you are in my world forever and have come over from the poor world without even noticing. going from a vision to the reality, like a little child dreaming about mother and who wakes up being pressed against mother's heart. I will act like this with you. Be good, patient, charitable, and have no fear. I want to read you the quotation at the end of the chapter, because how Maria Valtorta's life ended was truly beautiful, if you understand what he says here. These words were touchingly prophetic as one bears in mind that Maria Valtorta died on October 12, 1961, after a few years of gradual, growing psychological isolation, by which she became irremediably estranged from the outer world, as though she were totally absorbed by her inner life. Thus, she passed through death from a contemplated vision to a reality that she was to live forever. Be good, patient, charitable, and have no fear. I give you my peace. I give it to you in plenty today. Name of Mary, and let it be the gift of grace to little John.